Mary McBride also talked to Daniel Burke, whose father Jerry we've met on Seascapes in the past on the inland waterways. Daniel is the proud owner of barge 77M.
I've been involved in boating and barging my whole life, really. We're now on 68M, which is my father's barge, and I kind of would have served as first mate and deckhand and skipper at various stages throughout the years. Similar story with an awful lot of the rest of the barges. I would have helped on any time we were going anywhere, anyone who needed a bit of crew or whatever else. So kind of, I'd be of the age and generation that I would have been involved in this from the time I was 5 or 6 when Dad first bought it. From helping bring it around the place, from helping renovate it to everything else. Involved in every stage of the process, and because there was an awful lot of other barges been done up at the same time and some that were already done up, and kind of we all dug together and helped. So anyone that's coming behind us, including myself, everyone's more than willing to dig in and give a hand. It's a real community. I'd say the peace and tranquility is probably the best. Not to get too philosophical about it, but just enjoying the waterways and the fishing, boating, sailing. I'm a scuba diver myself, so I dive off the barge, just swimming and snorkeling. And the boat rallies is good as well. You have a different side of things. You got the community, you get to see the other boats. Music, I'm a musician myself, so you'd play music on each other's boats and everything else. And also I'm a craftsman at heart, so I enjoy the actual physical side of things, carpentry and a bit of metal work and that kind of stuff, and messing around with the engines. So it's kind of enjoy every part of the process, but you kind of have to, because the amount of time you have to put into it, people don't really realise, but it's a 24/7 job really, The barge back in January, so that's kind of where it started. There was, as I say, a long process of all the hulls that were up for sale. Mine was the only that was actually out of the water. Most of the rest of them were sunk, so believe it or not, a sunken barge is quite easy to resurrect than one that's actually out, because there was quite a lot of damage done to it. Not when she was taken out, but after she was taken out, rusted and all that kind of stuff. Parts of the hull didn't fare that well, being up on the hard. So we had to do an awful lot of work on it to actually get it back to original and get it ready to launch again. So kind of we'd 6 months before you could even call it a boat. It was essentially just a piece of metal up on the land in a car park. So it was an interesting conversion, I'd say. I don't think anyone else here has actually bought their barge out of the water, you know what I mean? So it was definitely a different story to everyone else. So we put it in and brought it around. It was in Fennis Court, just below Bagnallstown in Carlow, and to bring it back to the home, it's about 130 miles. So it was a couple of days between weekends and everything else. We were about 4 or 5 weeks bringing it down, a couple of days here and a couple of days there, and I finally got it home. So it's in its early conversion stages. It's watertight, the engine is working and everything else, and I have accommodation on board. But the next step is kind of bring them up to the level of the ones here, having all the home comforts, running lights and solar power and all that kind of stuff, the mod cons. So it's still at its basic stages, but also you have to be careful of when you're converting it. You don't want to do it. You want to do everything kind of on par with remembering the past and keeping it traditional. You can't just stick in carbon fibre and all this other kind of stuff. You have to keep it as close to original as you can, because as people often say, even though we're the skippers at the moment, we're only minders for them. They've been around long as we are, and they'll be around long after we're gone. So it's very rare you kind of just model it and reconstruct it in steel or whatever else. Just get something that looks close to the original. You might get a bit of a slagging off some of the older bargemen here, but you're going to do the best you can. It's a big commitment, but I think it's something we all enjoy here. We all know what we're getting into when we do eventually take the big plunge and buy our own boats.
Daniel Burke, who spoke to Mary McBride for Seascapes on the shores of Lough Erne. There are a large number of events connected with Heritage Week taking place right around the country, and you can find details on the Seascapes webpage. Next week here on Your Maritime programme, we have part 2 of our conversation with distinguished maritime artist Kenneth King. Mary McBride takes on sailing aboard a 1720 at the National Seascapes webpage, and we'll be hearing more from Kenneth on next week's edition of Your Maritime programme. We head up to Lough Erne Yacht Club next, where last weekend